there's still an issue of high inflation, an economy that's now being forced to slow more and more by the Fed's hikes, and that's going to be a negative for the stock market. Crypto, on the other hand, yes, you're going to have more downside, I think, ultimately, but I do think you're getting close to that bottom.
In today's video, Chief Market Strategist of InTheMoneyStocks.com Gareth Soloway tells us all about his latest analysis of the charts as well as his predictions and price targets for Bitcoin. According to Soloway, Bitcoin may face a lot of uncertainties in the near term as a result of the ongoing global economic declines, and we can still possibly see the Bitcoin price drop to 12K even lower, before putting it at a bottom. Soloway shares his opinion regarding high inflation rates, the stock market, the crypto market, and the Fed. Before listening to him, please ensure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel.
This is the first kind of little bit of a give from the Federal Reserve. And ultimately, the market rejoiced. The one thing I would like to just point out is that if you look historically at when the Fed pivots, the markets actually eventually dump out and go lower. That's on the back of the fact that the Fed is pivoting because the economy is starting to slow faster and faster and faster. So while the initial reaction is like, holy cow, thank goodness the Fed might start to hike less, maybe eventually getting to points where they're at zero interest rate hikes, there's still an issue of high inflation, an economy that's now being forced to slow more and more by the Fed's hikes, and that's going to be a negative for the stock market. Crypto, on the other hand, yes, you're going to have more downside, I think, ultimately, but I do think you're getting close to that bottom. And I think this is exciting because, DZ, you know that for the most part, I've been bearish since 69,000 on Bitcoin. I'm finally getting to the point where we're getting close to a bottom where I'm going to start to loading the boat.
Saying on a shorter time frame, we get a nice little pump, then a dump. Are you saying a few 4-hour candles, a few daily candles, a few weekly candles? What do you typically, what is short term?
Yeah, so short term for me is really over the next few days to 1 week. And so what you can see here is the positives on the chart are this, is that you held this pivot low, right? So this was your FTX collapse. That held, and we've actually rallied up. We had a nice bull flag here, and we've popped up. The big test for Bitcoin is going to be the June low, which was the Terra Luna low. And notice how, again, that's now resistance. So if Bitcoin gets up there to 17,600, that's going to be the first big test of resistance. So I do think we continue to trade up just a little bit here in the near term, but I still have a downside target 12 to 13,000, maybe sub 10. But again, when you look at where Bitcoin has been at 69,000, right? 69,000 to 16 or 17, all we have left to go, in my opinion, is down maximum to 9. I'm going to start to just continue to accumulate as we get closer and closer. The writing is on the wall that now you're at a point where the Fed is going to stop hiking, so that's positive, and eventually we will get in such a bad recession, maybe even depression-ish type situation, that the Fed will have to start printing again. Granted, that's years out, but Bitcoin is going to be one of the mainstays for that rally at that point.
Yeah, a couple things. I saw Elon's tweet, and he was speaking specifically of the Fed rates, and he says, yeah, they really must slow it down, or we do risk a recession, possibly a depression, like you said. Are you agreeing with that? Now, are you saying we can handle maybe 1 or 2 75s, or are you saying we should maybe go ahead and stop now?
Oh, the Fed probably should have stopped even before the last 75 hike, right? But I think what they're going to do, my guess is so if you look at this year or since the rate hike cycle began, it started with a 25, then a 50, then 4 75s, right? So then you figure they're going to do the same thing on the downshift, which will be down to a 50 and then a 25 and then basically break even. And they've given us a target of basically 5% on the Fed funds rate. We're at 4 right now, so that kind of gives us another 75 total basis points, maybe 1 percentage point higher. So, but again, the bottom line is that we're in a situation where when the economy goes into recession, all investors, including everyone here, is going to say, okay, Fed, you've printed us out of every past recession, so do that again. And the Fed initially is going to say, guys, we can't. Inflation's still 4 to 5%. So that's going to be the conundrum that the overall equity markets are going to face, but it will get bad enough. You're going to see unemployment probably above 10% within the next 2 years. And I think that's where the Fed will be forced to print again.
Would you say that is because, right now the job is so robust, it's so strong, we're almost in uncharted waters at this point. So you do feel that the job market won't be as robust, say, you said about 2 years from now?
Yeah, so it's going to take a little while, right? It's going to be a slow and steady build of unemployment. So right now we're at three and change percent. It's going to get to like 4, 5, 6, 7. But really, once it gets north of 10, that's where you're going to see the real pain in the economy. And one of the things you can look at, I mean, look at almost every company out there, Meta, Snapchat, I mean, Microsoft, all these companies, Apple, they're all talking about slowing their hiring or actually laying off 10% of their workforce. And so that's going to be very, very pervasive, and it's going to start to build in the job market. And you will see that hit the economy, and the unemployment numbers will jump.
All right, well, this is a little unrelated to crypto or the finance market, but do you think the era of talent acquisition as a business strategy, are those days over, or will it just be relegated to, say, Google and Apple, or just a handful of trillion-dollar companies that can afford to maybe lose out on the payroll side, but when it comes to talent procurement, they're just unrivaled, and it's, seems to be a good long-term strategy. Will that end eventually, or, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think it'll end, because, I mean, top talent is top talent. Top talent produces, DZ, your top talent you produce, right? So, I mean, I think that's important, right? So a top talent is always going to get jobs. The key is you have a lot of this mid-level talent, and that's where the pain is going to be, right? The kind of the people that they have a little bit of skill, but they're not the top producers, and they're going to be the ones that will lose their jobs. And we heard Twitter. I mean, Elon Musk already fired like 50% of Twitter, so there's a bunch more people on unemployment.
Now, do you think that will create a new paradigm in how people hire and fire? Do you think the same thing can happen with Elon Musk and some of these tech companies? Like, you know what? I'm kind of looking around the office. I see a lot of people not working. I bet I can fire 50%. We had a tough quarter. Are some CEOs out there going to rip that Band-Aid off, do you think?
I do think so. I think you're at a point where people have to really be working hard. I think there's this push to get people back in the office, because while you did see initially productivity go up, there's no doubt about it. When people work from home, they tend to take breaks more. They tend to just kind of goof off a little bit more. And I think that's important, is like the people that are driven, right? You have a certain amount of group that's driven to work hard, that wants to achieve like big things in life. And then you have other people that are kind of okay with the status quo. And the status quo can't be home and just doing their thing, because they're going to just play video games on their downtime and so forth. But obviously people like you or me, we're home, we're going to be driven, we're going to get things done and advance our careers like that. So I think it's a matter of this mid-level group. Those are the ones that will see the layoffs. They're the ones that will get filtered out. And companies honestly have hired a lot of people that probably weren't fully qualified, because the job market was so tight, they didn't have a choice. Well, now you're going to see more people in the unemployment side, where these companies are going to have a choice about the top talent. They can go out and really do the interviews and say, okay, we're going to take this person out of 100 because they're the best. Kind of crazy. It's like surreal. It's like, it is like a movie, you're right. Like, somehow this individual who's costing people sometimes their life savings. I mean, I know people that are, can't get a cut, their $100,000 or even more that's at FTX, and to see applause, see kind of like all of a sudden, what is he, this hero again? I think it's lunacy, and I think honestly it makes me angry. I think there's no other way to take it. Like, you can't get away with something like that. And I don't care if you blame it on stupidity. I didn't realize. I'm sorry, you're not a hero. Maybe you're not a villain. Maybe you're not like, a huge fraudster or a super villain. But at the same time, you shouldn't be getting applause. I'm sorry. When you screw, like DZ, you screw up at work, and then you're like, oh, I'm sorry. Does everyone like?
No, no. Ben
like,
screams
come on,
at me.
man.
I'm
like,
kidding.
even if you're just taking it like a job, he messed up. He shouldn't. Yeah. He should at least be fired and be done with. Even if he didn't, number one, he's the CEO, so the buck stops with him. He's responsible. Yes. And number two, then if he wasn't aware, then who was? Because someone was making this conscious decision to use client funds.
What did you expect? If you were told someone got a time machine, hey, FTX is going to collapse, a huge contagion. They're revealed that they have X% of Solana. All these companies are going to go under. What would you expect that Bitcoin price to have hit?
Yeah, and I think that's one of my key points about why I think we're getting close to a bottom. Let me share you guys with the charts again. So here you had the Terra Luna collapse, right? And this is exactly to what you're speaking of, DZ. You had a drop from basically, 31,500 down to about 17.5. So you're talking about, it was close to a 50% decline.
Yeah, that is huge, 40-something% there. Yeah.
Right, and then if you look at the FTX scenario, which arguably was worse, all you dropped was about 25%. And so what that's telling us is that the market is starting to discount and say, okay, we expect bad news. That's already somewhat in the price of Bitcoin. And that's one of the reasons why I'm starting to get excited that we're getting close to the low. And again, granted, 9,000 is my low end target. It doesn't seem like it, but think about it again. From 69 to 17, if all you got to go now is to 9, that's kind of close to the end of the road here.